How do you untangle a knot that's taken 20 years to tie? A knot that involves millions of workers, thousands of factories, and hundreds of billions of dollars? That's the impossible puzzle Apple is trying to solve. You've seen the headlines. Apple moves production to India. Foxconn builds factories in Vietnam. It seems like a massive, inevitable exodus is underway. But the reality is far more complicated. While Apple is desperately trying to diversify, the idea that it can just pack up and leave China anytime soon is a fantasy. In this video, we're going to unravel that 20-year knot. We'll break down the 3 colossal reasons why Apple is still utterly dependent on China, and why unplugging from the world's workshop is the most complex and risky maneuver in modern corporate history. The 3-pillar dependency. Let's call this what it is, a dependency. But it's not just one thing. It's a dependency built on 3 massive pillars, each one supporting the other. Pull one out, and the entire structure risks collapse. The first pillar, and perhaps the most famous, is scale. The numbers are just staggering. To meet the demand for a new iPhone launch, Apple needs to manufacture well over 100 million units in a matter of months. That's more than the entire population of Germany, all needing to be built, tested, and shipped in an incredibly short time frame. No other country on Earth has ever had to mobilize on this scale before. But in China's Shenzhen and Zhengzhou regions, it's just another quarter. This isn't just about having a lot of people. It's about having a highly concentrated, highly skilled ecosystem of people who have been doing this for 2 decades. Which brings us perfectly to the second pillar, the ecosystem. Apple doesn't just build phones in China. It has built an entire universe there. Think of it like this. A single iPhone 15 has components from hundreds of different suppliers. Glass from one company, cameras from another, specialized screws from a third, custom alloys from a fourth. Over 95% of these suppliers are based in China or have massive operations there. They are all located within a few hours' drive of each other. This creates what's called cluster manufacturing. If a last-minute design change requires a new part at 3 a.m., a factory manager can get on the phone, and a truck with a prototype part is at the assembly line by sunrise. You cannot replicate that speed and flexibility anywhere else in the world. Trying to rebuild this intricate web of suppliers in another country wouldn't take years, it would take decades. And this ecosystem is held together by the third and most crucial pillar, skill and discipline. We often think of assembly line work as low skill, but that's a mistake. Assembling a modern smartphone with its microscopic tolerances, complex optics, and seamless design is incredibly difficult. The workforce in China, particularly through partners like Foxconn, has spent generations honing this specific skill set. They have teams of highly trained engineers living on-site, ready to solve any problem instantly. The discipline and work ethic are engineered into the system to meet Apple's insane quality control and deadlines. When Apple needed to suddenly change the iPhone screen design late in production a few years ago, they reported that Foxconn woke up 8,000 workers in the middle of the night. New shifts were started immediately, and within 96 hours, the production line was running at full capacity again. That's a level of mobilization that borders on the unbelievable. You cannot order that. You cannot buy that. It is a capability that was forged over 20 years of partnership. The grand decoupling illusion. So, with these 3 pillars in mind, scale, ecosystem, and skill, let's look at what's actually happening with Apple's decoupling. Yes, Apple is moving some production to India and Vietnam, but it's critical to understand the context. This isn't a wholesale exit, it's a hedging of bets, and it's happening painfully slowly. Currently, less than 15% of all iPhones are made outside of China, and even that number is misleading. Many of the phones assembled in India are actually built from what's called CKDs, or completely knockdown kits. Essentially, thousands of pre-manufactured components are made in China, shipped to India, and then put together there. This isn't creating a new, independent supply chain. It's just adding a final, overseas step to the existing Chinese one. The heart of the operation, the making of the sophisticated components, is still beating firmly in Shenzhen. Furthermore, the products being moved are often older models. It's far less risky to produce last year's iPhone in a new factory with a new workforce. The production processes are already perfected, but the latest, most advanced models, with their new designs and cutting-edge technology, those are still almost exclusively born and bred in China. Apple is trying to replicate its 3-pillar model elsewhere, but it's like trying to build a new high-speed bullet train network while still relying on the old one to carry 85% of your passengers every single day. the risk of derailment is enormous. The billion-dollar calculus. This leads to the billion-dollar question. If it's so hard and so risky, why is Apple even trying? The answer is simple: because it has to. The risks of being too dependent on China are now just as great as the risks of leaving. Geopolitical tensions between the US and China are the biggest threat. Tariffs, trade wars, or even a conflict over Taiwan could suddenly cut off Apple's access to its primary manufacturing base overnight. For a company that relies on China for most of its revenue, that is an existential threat. There's also the rising cost of labor in China. Wages have increased dramatically over the past decade, chipping away at the cost advantage. While the skill is still unmatched, the pure financial benefit is slowly eroding. So, Apple is playing a long, expensive, and incredibly difficult game. It's walking a tightrope. On one side, the catastrophic risk of leaving China too quickly and collapsing its production capabilities. On the other, the catastrophic risk of staying too long and getting caught in a geopolitical trap. It has to maintain its immense operation in China to fund its current success, while simultaneously spending billions to build a fragile, fledgling operation elsewhere to ensure its future survival. So can Apple leave China? The answer is no. Not now, and not for the foreseeable future. The dependency is too deep, too complex, and too valuable to simply abandon. The infrastructure, the skill, and the sheer scale are a moat that protects Apple's production capabilities, but it's also a cage that makes escape nearly impossible. The story of the next decade won't be about Apple leaving China. It will be about whether it can successfully build a credible China Plus One strategy without compromising the quality, innovation, and scale that made it the most valuable company in the world.